Welcome to a special episode of the Chaps Podcast. I'm Tim Meehan, your host, and we have a very special episode today. Very special guest at campus, Mr. Paul Rudy. Paul, thank you for joining us today.
It is an honor.
Paul is a longtime broadcaster, a legend in the local broadcasting arena. You've hosted a show called Prep Pigskin Report for, I believe, 26 years. Is that right?
We'll be starting our 27th year this fall.
Starting the 27th year, you really began as, I would say, a niche show to really kind of promote high school football in the area, and it's blown up since then, right?
Yes.
So if you could maybe kind of, let's start with that. Like, when you first started the show, could you ever envision that 27 years later?
If I thought the show was going to be here 27 years later, I would have called it something other than the Prep Pigskin Report. It was just a lark. We were having a couple beers and we said, what are we going to call it? I said, well, let's call it and everyone started laughing, and that was the working title, and it became the title, and now it's the title we are, can't change it now. The branding is so ingrained. My story is, my father played on what is considered the greatest high school football team of Wisconsin state history. He played with a guy named Alan Amici, who went on to win the Heisman Trophy and played for the Baltimore Colts, scored one of the most famous touchdowns in all of NFL history back in the 50-something title game. Long story short, my dad was a big high school jock, and they played on this team. Their average margin of victory over 2 seasons was like 40 points. Nobody could touch them. It was a group of blue-collar Italians working, all their parents worked on the American Motors line, and they were all tough kids. There were only about 20 or 25 of them, but man, they were just bigger, faster, and they were like Lincoln is today. They were just cut above everybody, and they were good. So my dad had this love of high school football, and that love went from him to his eldest, me. And he would take me as a kid. We were now living, he was away from his hometown, but we would go to high school football games. And I can remember my dad throwing me over a fence as we would sneak, because we were too cheap to pay the admission. And I've had this love of high school football. I was not a great high school football athlete, but I loved the practice part of it. I loved the games. I loved the rare moments I did something good, and I learned from the moments where I did a lot of bad things as far as getting crushed on the field. But I started as I was working, navigating my way through the cities, all the places I worked. I was thinking, it's an untouched. Back in the day, no one wanted to do high school sports. It wasn't sexy like the Chargers or this, that, and the other thing. And I was thinking, there's 40 schools playing high school games. Why not tap into that and be the first? And so we got to 12 games one Friday night, and we called it its own little thing, the Prep Pigskin Report. And we got to 12 games, and we thought we were world beaters. And all of a sudden, the feedback we were getting was, hey, can you get to 13? And now we get to 12 games in the first commercial break. At the heyday of the show, prior to the COVID, kind of ruining our revenue streams, we were going to 32, 35 games with two-man crews. I mean, I had an army of people. I had close to 100 people working on the show in the span of 20 years. It went from this, I remember the first night, I had 3 photographers. They all had to wear ankle monitors because they were in trouble with the law. So we only got first half highlights. They had to be home by 9 o'clock. But now I've got just these killer shooters and these young kids. The reason why I'm on campus is to get these kids, to pair them up with these shooters. And man, I'm sorry, it's a network quality show, barring the host, but the rest of the people are all really talented. And there's nothing else like it anywhere in the United States. No, I say this, and I say this with pride. I go to speak at functions, and I tell you, I say, everyone shut up in the room. I'll buy you a steak dinner at the restaurant of your choice if you can find another TV station in the United States, on the globe for that matter, that preempts their 11 o'clock newscast for a high school football show. Nobody does that. Started as 15 minutes, grew to 30, grew to 36, grew to 60, grew to 65, now 75 minutes with a pre-show from 4 to 7. So we're doing just a ton of local TV on Friday nights. Nobody's gonna, because money is such a big deal now that TV stations can't afford to lose money on anything. We ran in the red the first 3 years. I don't think we broke even until year 4. And then we became a cash cow right up to COVID. I mean, then it became, because suddenly everybody, here's the lesson, else I'll shut up. You can't go broke featuring little Joey and little Susie. Moms and dads, all they care about in life is their kids and their kids' future. And anything you can do to showcase them in a positive light, they will support you. Now, 27 years down the road, we not only have the moms and dads supporting us, but we have the kids who were first on the show that are now moms and dads who have kids on the show. And it's just, and it's different now. Our TV ratings aren't what they used to be, but our social media footprint is.
And now you brought on Burt Grossman.
Cast of thousands.
Yeah, cast of thousands, right?
Coach Carroll, Coach James, 6 reporters, all these live shots. I mean, it's a humongous. It's back before AB5 and all the show. We could offer entry-level jobs for minimum wage when minimum wage was still bearable for a small independent TV station, and we could make a nice chunk of change. Nowadays, it's a little tougher in the state of California to have a small business, which the PPR is, and their minimum wage has gone up, but the revenue has stayed the same. So, long story short, it's a little tougher road to hoe. Thankfully, we now are under the Nexstar umbrella. We are now our owners sold us to to the Fox people, which are Nexstar, I should say. So consequently, we have a little corporation behind us, and this corporation likes the show because it's, they have 200 TV stations, but they only have one Prep Pigskin Report. So they're not so quick to throw it away, and we'll fund it a little bit. So we have a future. I'm going to be out in a little bit, but we have a future.
And here you are at your stage in your career, the host, the veteran, the one who started it. You're here on campus recruiting students. You're out the ones, not hiring somebody else to do that work. You're out here doing the work. You hosted a table today looking for prospective interns. How did that go? Tell us about it.
I met 9 kids who I think have a shot, and I'm going to do this at schools. Here's the deal. Last fall, I had this young lady by the name of Maddie Worley. And Maddie worked at Point Loma Nazarene, she attended Point Loma Nazarene, and she came to us. And I said, Maddie, can you do this? She did it. So I said, Maddie, can you do this? Also, I realized Maddie can do everything I can do as well, if not better than I can. And she was making my 60-hour work week a 52-hour work week. So this is how smart I am. I thought, what if I had more than one Maddie? Could I get it down to a 48-hour work week? What if I had 3 Maddies? What if I had 10 Maddies? What if I had all Maddies? How easy could my day be? Right now, I'm just doing the morning show. I have no sports commitment, so I'm done at 10 o'clock. I got time to go to meet with people like yourself and find those kids who maybe don't know about me or the show, but really want to know me or the show, because I can in turn help them get their first broadcast gig, which the first one's the hardest one to get. And if in exchange for undying loyalty to me and the PPR, I'll help them get a foot in the door somewhere. Because like I was telling you about this Nexstar family, you got your foot in the door at 200 different markets around the country. Because once you get onboarded into the Nexstar family, you're in the system forever. So if you show on your resume that I worked for KUSI in San Diego, well, that's going to carry a little weight when you're applying for a job in Tuscaloosa or wherever you might be.
What are some of the things you would be looking for in your recruiting of students?
4 sets of kids. Well, the most lucrative assignment on the show is to be a photographer, somebody who has a good camera, a good tripod, and a good microphone, and can shoot tight. I encourage everyone to go to our Prep Pigskin Report YouTube page and look at the quality of photographers we have on the show. We send out about 20 shooters every Friday night. I'd say 9 to 11 of them are world-class shooters. They are NFL films good. When the ball is in the air circling, you can see little things saying how many pounds per pressure to inflate the ball to. That's how good they are. They can. I have a saying, but I'm not going to use it. They can shoot really tight. All right, and then then the rest are pretty decent. We have one or two people that are not there yet, but we're working with them. If you want to we can pay entry-level shooters, if they have their own gear and their own vehicle, we'll pay them in their first year $170 a night to work 5 hours on the show, which I know you're not going to retire on it, but it covers your gas and pays your cable bill. And that's the first thing. We're looking for people who can shoot, and that's your best economic opportunity. Your professional opportunity is to be a field producer. That's somebody who goes to the game with a photographer and helps pick the highlights, helps edit the video, helps write the script, does the social media stuff. That's a 10-hour-a-week job. And from that pool, we pick what the best of those kids are considered for the in-studio positions. Those are considered a little more, you're in the building 3 days a week. KUSI, the studio, you're working around me, you're putting my sportscast together. The reason why that is a significant gig is because you're around the bosses of we're now 2 TV stations under one roof, so you're actually working in 2 TV stations that all the news directors and all the suits are seeing you on a regular basis. They know your name, so when that job comes open and they say, oh, hey, we have Darlene right down there, she's sitting here doing the exact same thing. I can't tell you how many people I've slid into positions for just because they were in the right place at the right time. And then the fourth category, and this is the one where I want to learn from somebody, is people who are really good with social media. They know what generates the clicks and the views and all the crap that I don't know anything about. That can teach me how to make a more entertaining social media post. And that what they're doing on Friday night is everybody's sending in pictures, and all they're doing is feeding the social media monster. And while we're not Barstool Sports or anything, but we have a pretty good social media footprint, and we're emphasizing that more and more. So there are 4 skill sets that I'm looking for. Some people can do more than one, and consequently they get more hours. But those are the 4 kinds of kids I'm looking for.
What skills or knowledge would a student intern walk away with after having been on the show?
Well, if you're that kid, if you're that Maddie who is working side by side with me 3 days a week, well, the first thing you're going to learn is how to work for a tyrant. You're going to learn that my grandma used to have a saying, what's in my stomach is in my mouth. She had a way of making you feel loved and hated at the same time. And so you learn how to work around difficult people. I'm not easy to work with because I expect you to read my mind. And by the end of the year, you will be able to read mine. You're going to know what I'm going to need. But you're going to learn that skill, which I'll tell you what, it's a good skill to have, because in life you're going to work for people that you're not going to love, and you're going to learn you're going to have to navigate that water. I don't care, unless you own your own business, you're probably going to have to deal with people that, you're not your best friends. But you'll figure it out, and that's one skill you're going to come away with, is how to work around a difficult person. But more importantly, what you're going to learn is you're going to have all the basics. You're going to learn how to speak the jargon. When someone says, I need a 20-second VO, and keep this out under 15 seconds, you're going to know what all that means. And you're going to don't forget to super it. Don't forget all these little things that, unless you teach the course or work in the business, you're not going to know what it is. So you're going to learn to speak TV, basically, which helps. You're also going to learn to deal with deadline pressure. And deadline pressure does funny things to the body. I mean, it can tighten you up and make you just paralyzed with fear, or it can make you focus, and you're going to be in one of those 2 camps. If you're in the former camp and you don't really like it and you don't want to get a bleeding ulcer, well, then you learn that early on and you don't waste a lot of time. You learn it. There's so many different ways to make a living in this industry that you'll learn to find something that is not so deadline oriented. But if you love it, and you're going to be one of those kids who focus in and lock in, and when someone's screaming in your ear, you got 20 seconds, and you're just about to hit the send button, you're going to learn. And I'll tell you what, the kids that get off on that are the kids we want to, put in those positions.
Do you actually learn more about that being in sports as opposed to doing that same thing maybe for news?
I think in sports more, because we're up against. In news, you have sometimes a little more time. Like often, if you do your story at 3 o'clock and it doesn't air until 6:30, you have a lot more time, as opposed to going to a game that ends at 10 and your highlights are on the air at 10:30. or 10:45, or if your game goes into double overtime and it's getting done at 11:05 and you have 15 minutes, and if you haven't learned how to work ahead, I mean, we'll teach you all the tricks about how having everything done right up until the last second, maybe make 2 highlight packages so that you have one that's already sent in, and then the second one is saved for the winning play. All the little simple tricks that you maybe not know about in the academic level simply because you don't have the same kind of real deal pressure.
Right, and that's where the power of the internship comes in, right?
Yeah. 2
questions. Did you have an internship when you were in college? And if so, or if not, what do you see the value of a student having that internship?
Yeah, I had several internships, and they all sucked because all I did was fetch coffee and dry cleaning. And as I was doing that, I was thinking to myself, if I'm ever in a position where the roles are reversed, I ain't gonna have people fetching coffee. That's not what you're coming to do. You're coming to learn the craft. You're coming to make the overall job easier for me. And consequently, you're gonna get real life skills. And that's why it's really not an internship. What I'm offering you is a part-time temporary job where you're getting paid, you're on the payroll, you're inside the building, and you're going to get a 15-week education that is going to be as valuable as anything you've learned in school, in my humble opinion.
You're literally starting the show while some games are still going on.
Absolutely.
There's not much more way to explain a chaotic situation. So somebody being in that environment, they're going to learn way more than somebody who just learns about it, through the classes, right?
And you know what you have to have, you know what has to happen? I can remember a story. I was working in Green Bay, Wisconsin, and at the time there was a young player who played at the University of Green Bay. His name was Tony Bennett, and he was a phenom. His dad was Dick Bennett, who was coaching the team. And they had this father-son story that became a national story because little old Green Bay, and no one's ever knew that they had a basketball school, made it to the NC2A tournament. And so Tony Bennett led them. They got beat by Michigan State in the tournament, long story short, but it was the night of the NBA draft. And I'm at a bar, the biggest sports bar in Green Bay, and I'm doing a live shot. And Tony Bennett is projected to be drafted by the Seattle Supersonics at the 13th pick. I memorized the night before. I memorized everything there was to know about Seattle. And so I got there, and sure enough, it's going down. Tony Bennett's going to be picked by Seattle, and now it's pick 11, 12. And the photographer said, hurry up, put your microphone on. And so I put my microphone on, and I put it up through my shirt and put it on and I forgot to button my shirt. So now I'm looking like this because I got my t-shirt out, and I'm at the bar, and people are having a good time, and it looks like, that guy looks like he's been at the bar for a while. Sure enough, I see Tony Bennett's face, and they go, Rudy, take him live. And I go, everybody, Tony Bennett's been taken by the Seattle Supersonics in the 13th pick, blah, blah, blah. And I just started memorizing, shooting out all the stuff I knew about the Seattle Supersonics. What I didn't notice was that there had been a trade was been made, and he got drafted by the Charlotte Hornets in the pick before. And some guy at the end of the bar goes, hey, moron, you got it wrong. And if you could see, and I'm live on TV with my shirt hanging out, looking like a mess. And it was the most embarrassing moment of what now has been a 40-year career. Make a long story short, why I'm bringing that up is because you need moments like that to happen, because then they hurt so much and they stick with you so long as you spend the rest of your life making sure that they never happen again. You never go on the air until you're ready to present on the air, and you learn that the unexpected is likely to happen. So don't spend a lot of time getting baked into one position. Learn to go with the flow and flow downstream. Those are all things you learn from being in the building.
Great advice for somebody coming in and starting out. What would you say, in your experience, is the most important trait for somebody coming into the business?
Depending on what you want to do, there's a couple things I would say. If you want to be on air, if that is your goal, then I would advise people, first of all, to be bilingual if you can. I mean, I have a second language. It gives you an incredible extra step inside the door. Have command of the King's English is also, most people, or especially now in this age of this, people don't know the proper grammar, or what's that little mark mean? You'd be surprised some of the scripts that get handed in to be like, what the hell is this? So be able to speak and write the King's language is important. Bilingual would be really important. But for people who want to be on the air, the one thing I tell them is, you got to get outside yourself, because you get so nervous about people looking at you. Get outside force yourself to do something you're not comfortable doing. And the one thing I would recommend is get involved in school play. Do something where it forces you to speak in front of people in an environment you're not comfortable in. The sooner you can conquer that, the quicker your career will accelerate. So I always say, be around theater folk. Do something in the theater, even if it's just, sheriff number 2 or whatever, tree number 3 or whatever. Do it, because it helps you be comfortable. And then the other thing I just tell kids is, be available. Be the kid who says yes.
San Diego's not a huge market size-wise, but you get to live in San Diego. You get to call that your home. You obviously love this county. What would you recommend to a student going into the business, just to go anywhere that the job is?
Yeah, get in. Just get the first gig. And learn everything you can live, and don't, live simple. And I can just remember a lot of peanut butter and jelly and having one piece of furniture in my apartment in Green Bay, just because that's what I could afford. But you just have to get in. You have to get on the conveyor belt. So go. There's TV stations out there right now throughout the Fruited Plain that are in smaller markets that need bodies, and you just have to find that TV station. You have to be willing to move your stuff on your own nickel. The days of TV stations paying thousands of dollars, they're not going to do that anymore. So when they say, "Can you get here?" the answer is yes, and you go there and learn the ropes and just get on the conveyor belt is what I would recommend.
How will you know when it's time to hang it up?
Probably in my line of work, it doesn't really matter what you think. They tell you. TV, you have to, and that's another thing you have to be comfortable with. You have to be comfortable with, you have to have rhinoceros skin. If you're really sensitive, get over it. In life, if you can get 51% of the people to see your point of view, then because it's usually not that. So you have to deal with, you can't get wigged out about criticism, and I keep coming back to, there's this Tom Petty song, you have to have rhinoceros skin. You have to be emotionally tough and just be determined not to make the same mistake twice. And next thing you know, 40 years have gone by.
You also do some spots on radio.
I'm painfully aware of my limitations. I know that I guarantee you work around kids who are more talented than I am, who are better with names, I know that. And they'll work for a fraction of what I'm currently having, working for. So I get that one day the phone's going to ring and they're going to say, "Hey, Paul, thanks, it's over." TV is a lot like athletics. You have to accept the rejection. There's going to be, every now and then you get some rock star who just makes it through and never has a bad day in their life, and they're incredibly talented usually, But most of them are like me. We're just, lunch pail kids who trying to grind out a living. So, I've gotten fired twice now in a 40-year career. It's going to happen. To me, you don't get hair on your chest until you get that first termination, And sometimes it's not even your fault. It's just they want somebody else. So the better you can learn to deal with that and not take it personally, the better.
Favorite person, athlete or non-athlete, that you've met in your career?
Well, in a professional sense, God, that's a great question. Who have I? Because the name I keep coming back to, and I met him, I guess this would be a professional sense. During COVID, we started doing Zooms because no one would come in, and I struck up a friendship with Sammy Hagar, is the name, the Red Rocker,
Yeah.
And I didn't think much of it. We had these incredibly long COVID interviews. He was pitching, he was selling whatever tequila. But we had one, and then we had two, and the first one was 6 minutes, the second one was 9 minutes, the third one was 12, and the fourth one was 21 minutes. And then one day, I wrote him, I said, hey, I just want to thank you. These conversations are fun. I just wrote him a little hand note, not thinking, you wouldn't even probably see it. Next thing you know, I get an email or a letter back from him. I assume it was written by him. It was signed Sammy. He goes, hey, listen, I'm going to be playing up in Irvine. I'm sending a car. I want you and your friends to come see the show. Well, as it would have it, there was a PPR commitment that night, so I couldn't go. I didn't think much about it. But then he came to town, and he was going around, and he took me around, and it was like we knew each other. And maybe that's his gift. He makes everyone feel like they're special. And but since then, I've been to Vegas to see him play, and like we text back and forth. So I become friends with Sammy Hagar, and he's just a cool dude. And that only because of television would I have had that relationship.
I never would have guessed you would have mentioned a non-athlete, so that probably speaks more to the love you have for your job rather than just being a sports fan.
My favorite athlete, I sat down and I almost wet myself because I was so nervous, was in Kansas City, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who doesn't do a lot of media. Somehow, and I can't even remember what the circumstances, but I can remember seeing the video and my hand was shaking as I would hold the microphone for him to talk. And he said, relax, son, I don't bite. And he just put me at ease. And I thought, wow, the big fella. So that one probably for athletes, just because I was a big Laker fan back in the day.
Paul, you have a career full of knowledge. We appreciate your time joining us. Are you open to students reaching out?
My cell phone is 858-922-1272. That is my direct cell phone. My email is prudy@kusi.com. Prudy, R-U-D-Y, @kusi.com. Send me a picture. Tell me you want to work on the show. Tell me why I should pick you. I'm going to go between now and May 1st. I'm on a tour of schools, and I will hopefully meet, I'm saying 50 kids, but I just met 9 today, so I'm going to up that up to 100 kids. And from that 100 kids, I'm going to pick the 20 kids that impressed me the most in face-to-face.
That's amazing. That's amazing that you go out and are willing to help students out. Thank you for everything you do.
It was an honor. This was a fun chat.
Thanks, Chad.
All right.
Appreciate it.
You bet.